I think one of the challenges about turbulent times is the tendency to grab out, pull in, hunker in the bunker, when this is the time, most of all, we have to see ourselves as a team.
A speech is really a conversation. People need to get together to share best practices, to share camaraderie. More than ever, in times of turbulence, meetings are the key to success. This was a great audience. I felt it went really well.
When you give something more than you think you can afford, life gives back to you. Because once we begin to be generous, we discover ourselves living in a generous universe. How y'all? I'm actually from California, and before that, from New Jersey. Anybody else here actually originally from New Jersey? I'm just curious. Whereabouts? Sorry? No, I said sorry. So that's humor in New Jersey. I am reminded often that I am from California because although I talk really fast, I'm saying stranger and stranger things all the time. But I do think that we live in a time where strange things must be said. I was delighted to be invited to address you about leadership in turbulent times because it's really what I know. I'm an adventurer. And what adventurers really are individuals who have intentionally sought turbulent times, turbulent seas, turbulent weather, unknown places on the map that they could explore and thrive in, and then bring back the news so that the world could grow somehow larger, better, more evolved. Well, it used to be that only certain individuals had to have this set of skills, but today, like it or not, adventure has come to us all. Adventure really is that thing that happens to us when everything else goes right and then suddenly something goes wrong. That's when adventure begins. If you're out camping and your Coleman stove works just fine and the bears never show up at your table and you never run out of gas on the freeway and the rain holds back, you've had a really boring weekend. However, when all the opposite happens, boy, was that an adventure. So I want to suggest that adventure really is nothing more than adversity rightly considered. And since we live in a time of adversity, this is the turbulence to which we all refer, the recession, the earthquakes, the crack in the Washington Monument, by God, these are indeed interesting turbulent times. My suggestion is if we can look at them as an adventure that we share together in that sort of psychic jujitsu, the whole thing becomes, wow, isn't this cool? If you don't do it, it's, wow, this really sucks. That's up to you. So what I'm going to do in the short time that I have is try and convey what I call the best practices of the adventurer. I am successful in that I am not yet dead. If you die as an adventurer, it's pretty much the end of your career. So anyway, and I get to do cool things. I was talking to Mike, where are you, last night at dinner, and I got a call not long ago, a couple of years ago now actually, from the History Channel, and he asked me why they called me. It's because if you look for adventurer anthropologist on Google, you get me. So they called me and they said, we have found this spire, this 150-foot tower off the coast of South America on an island called Robinson Crusoe Island. And we have this archaeologist. Some of you may have seen the show. It was like one of the most watched, had the most watched show for a while on the History Channel. They play it over and over again. We need someone who's an adventurer anthropologist to come down and take a look at this tower, because this archaeologist believes this is the tower that represents the final key, the last clue to the missing puzzle of the Mayan prophecy of doomsday of 2012. I said, no, I'm too busy. I got stuff to do. No, I said, hey, you know, if it's dangerous and weird, count me in. So we go down, and I'm not going to, you can watch the show if you want, but somewhere here I have my little thing. This is a scene from the show. This is an actual picture of a Mayan about 2,000 years ago, standing on top of this pinnacle. And if you believe that, I have a pinnacle in New York City I'd love to tell you. This is the actual pinnacle, and I won't give you the whole story here, except to say that you see us going on over a boat, which is true, 4 days of really bad weather across these savage seas, but then no one seemed to ask how it was that the crew was there photographing us getting off the boat. Yes, we could have flown. Then we get toward the tower, and the director says, just do us a favor. When you first see the tower, don't make any faces. Why is that? He said, because you'll be horribly disappointed. We don't want that to show on camera. So we get there. It is indeed 100 foot of amazing rock. The likeness to the Mayan jaguar or whatever it was supposed to be, I could see nothing. Or it was supposed to be, it was all, there was no evidence of any human interaction. Whether or not this is the last place on Earth that the final eclipse of 2012 will be seen or not, I cannot speak with any veracity, authenticity, or credibility, but I can say when I got there, I saw nothing. Whether or not you believe in the Mayan story of the end of the world and all that, we all have to admit we're living in a time of transition. I personally, I'll tell you what I think the Mayans were right. By the way, there are other calendars found in other parts of Mayan world that go past 2012, so don't worry. You know, we're not all going to self-combust. But the Mayans did seem to forecast a changing of an era, that this would be an era of change. They've been very accurate going back over their calendars. Somehow they seem to know that stuff happens wherever they are, that stuff's happening somewhere on the planet, uncannily so. And what this calendar does mark, seems to me, is a change. We know that. We know we're in the change. We know we're in this amazing, literally a sea change of how we live, because as we have lived seems to no longer be tenable. To me, it's as if you come to the edge of a precipice, the only step that makes sense is a step in a different direction. If you step over the precipice, that's your choice. But there are many other more valuable choices, and that's what I want to talk about. What I want to share with you is what we need in these really turbulent, challenging times is a different kind of awareness that we ordinarily have. Phil and I were talking, we're both mountain guys. Why? Because on mountaintops, you begin to perceive the world differently. The wilderness and nature has the answers to questions we've not yet learned to ask. We have to allow ourselves to go beyond our ordinary awareness and begin to ask those kinds of questions. Otherwise, as Einstein said, we'll be trying to solve problems to the level at which they are asked. We have to supersede that level, different perspective. This is a mountain called Chicon. It's 18,000 feet. And the reason I like the story is that here's where I got my most important lesson, but not on a mountaintop. It was when I got down off the mountain. 18,000 feet, no one had ever climbed this mountain before, and for a climber, that is the ultimate goal. I have come from New Jersey, and I'm now in Arizona. My best buddy is a cowboy from Texas named Cowboy Steve McAndrews. He was like riding broncos in rodeos when I was riding buses to bar mitzvahs. But we have a lot in common, which is just our love of the mountains. He's a better climber than I'll ever be, so he climbs first, because that's the most dangerous thing to do, because you'll fall as far as your second person, and you'll fall at least as far again. Second person doesn't fall as far. So McCarran is above me. He's now ice grid to the mountain. We're about 2/3 of the way up, and he's bringing up the rope, and I got my ice axes. You know, you jam these things in, you can hang from your ice axes. You got crampons on your feet with points on the end. You kick those in, and you got a rope around your waist just in case everything else fails. I begin to feel my ice axes sliding like knives through butter. I'm falling backward through space at about 17,000 feet. I'm just in the middle of blue air, white ice around me, and a large drop beneath me. And somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, what passed before your eyes in this moment? Was it your life? The answer was no, it was my lunch. Absolutely. The same guy, he must have taken a climbing class, because he said, now, when you fell, did you alert your partner by yelling, falling? I said, no, you yell. I can't yell, actually. But you can imagine, which conveys the same information with a heightened sense of urgency. Imagine, oh, I seem to be falling. You know, oh, that's interesting. You know, we'll do that. This is the real stuff. I'm not telling you, this is actually what happens. So then you slam against the wall, and this feels good. Your fingers are bruised and bleeding, and your knees are injured, but you're going, this feels good. Why? Because you still feel something. It's the lack of feeling that we fear. And then you hear McAndrews yell down, are you all right down there, JF? And I wondered how a name with 4 letters could possibly have 2 distinct syllables. I get back on the ice, I climb up, there's McAndrews, I look at his blue eyes, my best friend, you know, I'm not close to death. And he was right there. And I remember it was maybe a week before that. We were climbing in Bolivia. We had finished the ice. We're going to start the rock. Took off those crampons, got out our salami sandwiches, breathed in the fresh air, looking over the view, and I felt myself sliding uncontrollably, skidding, till my toes were over the edge, and I'm going over, and I felt the snug tug at my waist behind me. I look back. There's McAndrews, one hand on a rope, one hand on a salami sandwich. Again, I was that close to death. The guy was right there. And maybe a week before that, maybe 2 weeks, but we were kayaking, and I don't do well in the water at all. And I kayaking, and I go into this rapid, and the waves come over us, and I can't see. Next thing you know, I'm under the water, and I'm waiting to come up, and I'm waiting. I'm not coming back up. It's a washing machine wave. Some of you have probably kayaked and know the washing machine wave. I don't know what to do. I'm losing air. I'm blacking out. A hand grips the back of my life preserver, pulls me up. I gasp in the sunlight, turn around into the eyes of my best friend, McAndrews. Again, that close to death. The guy is right there. So on this day, on this mountain, as I look in those eyes one more time, I realize something. This guy is bad luck. You know? Seriously. Important. But that's not the story. The story is, we make the top of the mountain. McAndrews makes a dumb error. He takes off his snow goggles. You know, he's a great climber, but at 18,000 feet, your mind goes a little blank. But the sun's behind the clouds, but that doesn't matter because the UV rays are so strong. They are toasting your eyeballs, and next thing you know, on the way down, McAndrews cannot see. So we're coming down. He can't see. We find a Motel 6. Now, a Motel 6 is actually a 6 foot deep or more gaping blue mouth of ice that you kind of hunker down in, and your wind blows over you, so you don't freeze dry to death. You just freeze, which takes more time. So time is now in our favor. In the morning, we're not dead yet, so we clamber out of this crevasse. We make our way down the last 2,000 feet of sloping ice, and here's where the story takes place. I have McAndrews around the waist because he cannot see. He has me around the waist because the day after your fall, your body will stiffen and you can't walk. So imagine him, me, and we're kind of not very heroic. And we're on the green, spongy, grassy ground, and these two little Peruvian kids dared to approach. I say dared because they'd never seen a two-headed extraterrestrial before. And it was classic. They're leading their little llama, you know, and they have little pointy hats, and they're looking at us, big black eyes. And the first kid says, "Amigo, señores, ¿de dónde vienen ustedes?" You know, where are you guys coming from? And we're macho, so we say, "Arriba, la montaña." And then the kid looked at me, and he said the phrase that altered my perspective on adventure forever. He looked at me, and he said, "Por qué?" Which means, why, right. But he wasn't done. He looked at his friend and said, "Ellos no saben." They don't know. "No hay nada arriba." There's nothing up there. I have thought about that endlessly. And it's a story I always tell. I never get to, I love, because the image was so beautiful. And the fact that out of the mouths of babes comes true wisdom. There was nothing up there, and yet we were willing to spend our lives dying to get up there, right? That's what I learned. I do work with the top C-suite people of some major companies, and a lot of these, actually some of them are now incarcerated, I have to admit that. Some folks should be and aren't, but by and large, with some exceptions, these are not really happy, healthy, productive, yes, individuals. Why? Because they got to the top of the mountain, and so often, they're not able to keep up with their third wife, you know. They're not able to find their kids because the kids have long ago gone and lost track of their parents. They don't have the very thing they need at this point in their life, which is their health, their vitality. They got to the top of the mountain only to discover when they got there, there was nothing up there, and all the stuff they really want then, they sold it down the river to get there. How stupid is that? Because I know I often find myself being guilty of the same thing. What I want to suggest to you is very important. This, that we used to say in the 60s, and I remember the 60s, believe it or not, was that life is not a destination, it's a journey. But I think what we're discovering now is even that's a bit facile, because journey implies that we're going somewhere, right? Hey. I think now we're discovering, especially in this economy, that life far more resembles a dance. We're probably not going anywhere. Our kids are not going to have it easier than we had it. We're probably not going to wind up with that yacht and the house in the Cayman Islands, and that's okay if we realize that life far more resembles a dance than even a journey. Because when you dance, you don't dance to get to any place on the floor. Hey, now I'm over here. You dance because you like it. You dance because you love it. You dance because you're in good company. You dance because the music fills you. You dance because you're friggin' alive. And that's a pretty great gift. So my suggestion is this. Those of us who are successful on mountaintops or in business or in life know there is nothing up there. But if we find delight in every step of the journey and the adversity and the turbulence that comes our way and embrace those with a joyful attitude and go, whoa, recognize their gifts, we will find ourselves on mountaintops. They will fall successively and gracefully beneath our feet. All we have to do is live life as an adventurous samba.